All right, welcome everybody. It's Doug with the LincolnList.com. This is the stock market week review for the 11th of May. Hope everything got off to a good start in the first full week of trading in May. If you're falling behind or you need some help, visit the LincolnList.com. Take the 14-day free trial to the live trade room. Every day was green last week, and we saw some really great numbers when it was all said and done. LincolnList.com. Start your week out with us. We'll pick up where we left off, of course, here with the SPY. I still got the lines drawn up from last week, and I said maybe if we got underneath of this trend line, we'd start to see a slow drift down into this 204, and I wouldn't really be bearish on this market, unless we got underneath of that 204. Well, when the employment numbers came out, jobs report on Friday, back to doing what it does, finding ways to go higher. Big gap on Friday, held most of that. Now you're pushing back up towards the top section here of the 212.30. 212.30. Now, as I've been saying, we've been in that range between the 212 and the 204, but you can see really over the last month, it's been most of its time at the top side of that range. So we're really just going to have to see how this works out. There was that breakout on the 27th of April here. We're coming back. It looks like we're going to challenge that, but you never know with this market. If we continue to stay up here or we really don't start, now we got some shorter term support at 207. If we really never get underneath of that, then I just think you're going to see business as usual in the market. You're going to have some up days, some good grind days, some grind down days, maybe some back and forth action here. But that's where I think we stand here on the SPY. Still overall bullish market if that's the way you're playing it. But no, we play stocks, so we want to look at specific stocks that can help us make some money this week. One I want to start looking at, I put this up on the list last week. It was in one of the game plan videos that we did as a short, and we were able to get in it on the right time today. Fortunately, you see this whole thing's been grinding out. And what we've seen here today, at least in this super grind market, was that a lot of these things did their normal. They would go like parabolic and pull back a little bit, and then rather than just laying flat, they would just start ripping right back. You saw this in a couple of moves, but this was a nice little drift here from just roughly off of 100. Makes a nice fade all the way down deep into the 20 moving average down to the high 97. So that's a pretty good pullback, only to see this thing just really, it's like a V-shaped recovery here. It just comes right on down. See it? Nice little V-shaped recovery and holding up really strong. None of that really matters going into Monday. What's more important is I'm looking now at this price. Yes, you had some good earnings, and it's a very nice move, but you're starting to get to that level that's a little bit overbought. You can always make the case that a stock is undervalued or overvalued, but if we look back to last week, we talked about IMH saying, hey, you look at it, you gap up, you got the story, everything's good, but once you start getting parabolic, you start getting euphoric, the prices can't sustain themselves no matter how good the story is. And you saw this thing print out in the high RSIs, high 90 RSIs, you got the fade, and that trade worked out very well. And I'm kind of looking at, I'm not going to say that SKX is going to roll over that deep. You might, but you're seeing something very, very similar. The differences, though, is there was a little more basing and flagging here for about a week with SKX, and then you got this nice little perk over the last 2 days. You got an 86 RSI. Yeah, it's overbought, but it's not the most overbought I've ever seen. And we're sitting up here towards the high 99s. Of course, we want 100. If we can get a nice para, or the last couple of days, you see it started out pretty strong. So if it could do that Monday and just kind of maybe move into 101, 102s, I think we'd really have to say this is a good short, because you would be talking about a price change from 73 to maybe 103, $30 price change in the matter of just a couple of weeks. So based on that, there would be a point where you'd start to see some profit taking like IMH and a possible pullback. I'm really going to be watching this one closely going into the week. The same could be said here for this ALDR. I shorted this one on Friday. We did in the trade room, and it was tough there. Got to take advantage of a couple of these pullbacks, but that was all it was. I mean, we saw so much strength on Friday. You just had to take whatever pullback you can get. As I said, I don't know if we're going to carry that over into Monday, but kind of the same thing that you saw with SKX, but not quite as much. You still have some pretty good price change in this stock over the last week. I mean, really, once this pivot starts down here at the beginning of the month from 22, you're already pushing up here about $18 worth of price. Most of that, of course, was jacked on these earnings Friday. And sometimes these earnings runners can go, but this looks like a pretty good move, and a lot of that is probably baked into this. As I mentioned with the rest of them, or the theme with all of the shorts that I like to look at, is if we can begin the day with some parabolic action or a gap up, that just puts us in a better position to make the shorts. When these things gap down or they start the day red, I just completely wipe them out as shorts because I've seen too many of them just drop. Then the notion is to get sucked into that short because you see a few red bars and you say, hey, this is going to be the day that this thing rolls over, and people pile on top of it, and then 20 minutes later the thing's poking back at highs, and you're like, what's going on? It's just never really a good price. Or maybe that works for you, but in my case I find I'm never in the right spot. So I want to be on top of the chart as much as I can with these shorts. So I want to look at stocks that have been really significant price changes over a few days, nice high RSIs, and then just kind of play into my hands with a really good gap in the morning. So I think you got that here with a couple of these that I'm showing you. Now, if we want to flip to something maybe just a little bit different, I just want to watch CALA. If you guys remember, this thing was the low float animal beast in December. I remember this thing because I got stuck in this thing shorting and ran out of shares and just got squeezed on here, and eventually it wasn't a real bad loss, but it wasn't one of those ones you look at and say, I'm glad I took that loss. It wasn't really that pretty. So that's the way it goes sometimes, and you get in these little low floats or NASDAQ stocks, and if you get too early or when the Momo gone, I mean, I don't have to tell you anything. If you've been trading for a couple of weeks, you've seen all kinds of stuff. PTBI this week, you had VLTC a few weeks ago, you had GVO, I mean, ICLD. These things can put in some impressive runs. Sometimes they last one day, sometimes they'll just get going, and it doesn't really matter. And the point I've made before with these stocks, it does not matter what the story is. It doesn't matter if it's BS or not, does it? I mean, if you're short the stock and you're getting squeezed on and you're upside down a couple of G's, and every time you look at it, it's just printing more numbers to the downside for you in your account, do you really care what someone else has to say how crappy the stock is? I mean, the reality is you're seeing this thing is not really working in your favor. So these have a tendency to do that. Having said all that and gotten off topic maybe a little bit with a rant, you've got earnings here that, I don't know, I'm not an earnings player, but it's like, okay, I guess the obvious would be, okay, they're good, I guess, because the stock's up so much. I just want to look at it because there's a possibility. The last time you got some perk, there was a couple of days. I'm not saying it's going to turn into this, but a lot of times this is the environment we're in. There's seen so many of these little stocks start ripping. This is a former runner, so it's going to have that nostalgia to it, where traders are going to want to come back and say, hey, you remember good old CALA? We made blah, blah, blah on that thing. Let's hit that. So if there's follow through, then it could be a second day run. You could see a really nice run. What I would want to see from this is absolutely no way would I ever be considered in buying. I don't care what it does. I ain't buying it up here. I would have to see this thing build some levels. And if I could kind of explain that, I would want to see it, pick a spot, because it'll probably jump around a lot. Here's my Michelangelo candlestick drawings. We'll call these bar charts for those that traded way back in the 80s. Maybe it'll bounce up or go down or something like that in the morning. But you'd want to look for a leveling spot where, you could find a point maybe off of a moving average, a VWAP, a round number, where you could get some support and you can gauge that risk and then take a shot if you feel it might curl up or might pull up or something like that. That's the only way I would take this trade. If it really gaps up and starts going nuts and next thing you know, you blink your eye and it's 18, probably just take it off your watch list for a little while because it might possess you into doing something stupid like chasing the price or something like that. Just as I said, I want to keep my eyes on it. I'm interested in some of these as long plays if they're going to follow through. I know they're garbage, and you got to use hard stops with these because at any given minute, the thing might just fall out of the sky. You never know. So you always have to be cognizant of that, but they could be running. So I kind of want to watch that there. So I got a couple of different plays, and as I've mentioned a lot of times in these watch lists, it doesn't really matter what I say. I can't see the future. I can see it about as well as you can. And when you get up Monday and you're ready to hit the markets, it's like, who knows? Who knows what's going to go on? I mean, we saw all kinds of stuff ripping today, like OLED. You saw this OLED right here. I mean, a lot of these things, they just show up on your scanners. You get some big moves. You had a nice move on CYBR right here. So, there's moves everywhere in the market. Some you can see, some you think are going to happen, and some are a surprise. And what you need to be able to do to be successful as a trader is you need to have this repetition to where you see these charts so many times and you embed those images into your mind and you get this stuff down pat. Because a lot of times stuff's going to pop up and you're not going to have the luxury of being able to just research that whole thing. You're going to have to make a decision and you're going to have to use a stop. You're going to have to manage risk. You're going to have to do all of this in like a split second. And that's what the difficult part is about being a trader is you have so much information that you need to process in just seconds and pick the right opportunities that sometimes you can just get lost and jumbled and make all kinds of mistakes. Trust me, we've all been there. So really, if you're looking to get to that next level, or that's something that might be a problem for you, take a moment, visit thelincolnlist.com. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's a free trial. It costs you nothing. You get to come into the room. You get to see these trades live on screen. Not that stuff where people are typing, hey, look, I'm buying such and such in text. No, everything's called out live on the mic like this. So you got to kind of put up with me and my voice a little bit, but I guess if you're making money, it's all right. And you see these trades live on screen. To me, that really puts you in the driver's seat. That lets you see up close what traders are looking at, how you decipher the information that's in front of you, and how you decipher these charts, how you react to these charts, and how you do all of that stuff rather than just, nonchalantly saying, I'm just picking it up here, I'm buying a little here. I don't think that's necessarily enough. So if you're looking to go to the next level, lincolnlist.com. Other than that, you guys have a great week of trading. As always, if you need to get in touch with me, service@thelincolnlist.com. Take care. Talk to you soon.